One of my favorite times of the year in horse racing, as it is with most people who love the sport of kings, is the weeks leading up to the Kentucky Oaks and the Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Derby weekend. The wagering opportunities are plentiful. There are always shots to take, and just as important, there are always horses to bet against, and some of them are going to be short prices. On the Kentucky Derby Past the Wire annual seminar, we go into all of this. Deep dive the Oaks, deep dive the Derby, and also look at key races on the Kentucky Derby card leading up to that ultimate test. 1.25 mile, 3-year-olds on the first Saturday in May. What we can do at the Derby seminar is help you be as prepared as possible. Share some shots that we are going to take and some key horses that we're going to bet against. Ticket strategies, wagering strategies, money management, speed figures, pace, projected trips. We cover it all. We get really into it, and we always have a great time, and we try and always put ourselves in position to do some serious shopping after the races. It takes a certain kind of horse, like it takes a certain kind of car to win on those big days. We are going to seek them out, and if it works out, they'll never take us alive.
For 150 years, the Kentucky Derby has stood as the most enduring tradition in American sports. And in our time, one stallion is reshaping its legacy. Back-to-back Derby winners. His first son at stud siring another. A dynasty in motion. A motion that again has forward momentum toward Louisville, with another elite crop of 3-year-olds bearing his genes. Spendthrift Farm, home of Into Mischief.
Knowledge, it ain't free. You got to pay attention and don't believe the hype. Hello, everybody. Welcome to what's kind of become an annual show with Dan Cronin, FBG, FatBaldGuyRacing, Ed DeRosa, currently with Horse Racing Nation, but has a vast resume in the sport of kings. And we're ready for some Kentucky Derby talk, Kentucky Derby radar, and we'll get right into it, gentlemen. And I'm going to start with a question that's not so much about this year's Derby, because we don't really know who's going to win it yet. Well, one of you two might. I don't. But I've got a question. I was looking at past Derbies, and the list of horses that have won the Derby and have never won another race is just getting longer and longer and longer and longer. So I was curious if you two guys have a theory about why that may be, because in my opinion, the list is too long that we could just say, well, it's coincidence, you know? So any theories out there on why we have so many Derby winners that never win again?
Go ahead.
I have a hypothesis. I would say one thing, and we are dealing with the small sample size, so I'll put that out there first.
Well, you're the stat guy, so
I would say one thing that's interesting to me is, in this era of HISA and regulations, whatever, really the Derby winner is the only horse coming back in the Preakness in 2 weeks, and Rich Strike didn't even do it, and that was a big long shot win. But we saw Mage, Mystic Dan both last year and 2 years ago, and I just wonder, with whatever regulations are keeping horsemen from wanting to run back in 2 weeks, maybe that's emptying the tank too much on these Derby winners, and then that's that. And to me, that's one thing that would come to mind. Again, small sample size. I'm sure we'll see a horse sooner rather than later. But when it only happens once a year, it's a long time between drinks. And we haven't had a May winner of the Derby win another race since Justify in 2018. And that's crazy. Now, Maximum Security did win again, but he didn't run in the Preakness after the DQ. So that, to me, there's something to that. Whatever's going on with Heiza and the withdrawal times, I think that's keeping horses out of the Preakness and maybe emptying the tank too much for the ones that do run back.
Interesting. Dan, thoughts?
I think Ed's onto something there. And I do think inviting horses from all across the planet that, in my opinion, don't belong in the race a lot of times, that all they do is inject these ridiculous paces into the race. We've had a lot of, since Heiza, nobody's going wire to wire anymore. Now, you could say that has something to do with it. You can say it doesn't, but they're collapsing at the head of the lane. And I think we're getting winners that are not the best horses. They just ran into these ridiculous paces, and the best horses got too close. And you got these horses winning that if they ran the race 10 times and they eliminated some of these horses that didn't belong, that are sending these, 46 flats and 45 and change pace, you're not getting a true winner, in my opinion. And again, it's a small sample size, but does anybody think Rich Strike was the best horse in the Derby? I mean, Mage won, but I'm not so sure he was the best horse in that race. Country House, I mean, he didn't even win, got put up, but was he really the best horse in there? I mean, it's a small sample size, but ever since Heiss has come in, you're not seeing horses re-break at the head of the lane and draw away, and nobody can get by them. And I'm not naming any names, but I'm just telling you, it's changed everything. And I think a lot of it is the pace is too fast. They can't sustain it with the testing. And then the horses that are winning are just not great horses. They just won because of the pace. And it doesn't surprise me that some of these haven't went on.
It's interesting because the change from the graded stakes earnings to the point system was really supposed to kind of weed out the sprinters and kind of take away those blazing fast early paces and lead to a more honest pace and an honest race. And from what you guys are saying, that or at least from what you're saying, Dan, it's really not your observation.
Since they've had these overseas horses coming, I mean, they're flying early. I mean, you can go back and watch the last 3 or 4 years, and every one of them, I mean, throw out the COVID year, but the rest of them, I mean, they're flying.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's interesting
the last
to
2
me.
years, I didn't see fast paces coming the last 2 years. And Kevin Kirstein screamed at me about it, said, "You're crazy. It's going to be fast." And he's right, and he was right both times. I mean, it was, just these horses coming from overseas, locking in with a couple of ours, and they just take off and
They go
crazy.
One thing that's interesting to me
you're
is
going to have to slide a little bit to your left, or maybe because we're on camera, you're right, because you're behind the banner there.
Oh,
And nobody can see your face. You can see him. No, the other way. The other way you got to go. There you go. There's
there
his
you go.
face. Beautiful
How
face
about
like
that?
that. You can hide it.
He got that banner up there.
Right.
I was going to point out, it's interesting to me in the points era, we had once it started, we had a string of favorites win, starting with Orb through Justify. And obviously American Pharaoh and Justify went on to win the Triple Crown. California Chrome was Horse of the Year. But Orb, Nyquist, and Always Dreaming by no means set the world on fire after their Kentucky Derbies. And they were all favored. So,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Rich Strike, obviously a huge price. Aberration, Country House 2 maybe. Mage and Mystic Dan kind of mid-pack price-wise. Mystic Dan a little higher. But even the favorites, there's a few in the points era that were complete duds after their Derby. So, again, I don't know if winning it is taking too much out of certain horses, but it's worth watching this year. I mean, when we talk about that Triple Crown drought from Affirmed to American Pharaoh, I think if nothing changes now, we're in for one that may go on forever, because in this Heiza era, having a horse win 2 more times in 4 weeks after the Derby just seems impossible.
And really interesting. I'm glad we started with this because I think you both bring out some really, really interesting points. And when I was pondering it, I really wasn't thinking Hissa having that much of an impact. But it makes a lot of sense now that you bring it up that is coming to play. My initial thought was that, historically, I think to win the Derby, and I think this is why certain trainers, to an extent, have a lot of success in it, and certain really good trainers don't even get there or point to it. I think to win the Derby, it takes a very, lack of a better term, well prepped, well trained horse that you have to really, really go hard on and get, really super fit and really, tighten those nuts and bolts. And, a lot of trainers don't do that. And I think that to win the Derby, you've really got to do that. And then when they do it, you maybe, if it's not the right kind of animal, kind of get them spent a little bit, So that was, my early thought. And combining that with what you guys are saying, I think we are probably on to as good a reason as anybody's come up with.
And with Heiza, I don't mention that to suggest it's anything nefarious. I absolutely don't think that.
I understand that.
Case.
I didn't take it that way.
But but when you get, when it's permissible to give a painkiller 2 weeks before a race, you can get the horse back on the track on Monday. And now it's not permissible to give certain painkillers. And, that's a separate debate whether you think that's good or bad. But if you're unable to train how you always had, if you knew a horse was going to race back in 2 weeks and they're not able to do as much on that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 12, 11, 10 days out, that's a huge disadvantage compared to a horse who last ran in the Lexington or the Santa Anita Derby.
I hate to bring this up because, I really can't elaborate, but there's 2 and possibly 3 horses in the Derby this year where the connections have already told me that if they win the Derby, they have no plan of running into Preakness unless they won by like 10 lengths and just kind of had to get dragged there, literally. And I find that interesting. Now, of course, I'm not at liberty to, say who they are because people tell you things that say, don't say anything. But, if we win, we ain't running back in the Preakness.
I'm not surprised to hear that.
Yeah, no. So it's just interesting. It's really interesting. Next, we'll say this, and this is really, well, you guys both probably know the answer to this, and I probably don't because I haven't been to the Derby in a long time. I've been to many of them, but I haven't been there in a long time. And the last time I was at Churchill Downs was when the Breeders' Cup was there. And Ed, I saw you there, so I don't even remember how long ago that was. I think Accelerate was the classic that year. So it was one yesterday.
2018 or 19?
Yeah,
2018, I think.
It was a while ago. So my question is this. People ask me this all the time, and people that watch the show ask me, and I don't know the answer. Where are the best places to eat, and where's the best place to stay? Now, when I was at the Breeders' Cup last time, I stayed at a hotel downtown that was probably the nicest hotel. All the pictures in the room were all racing pictures, and everybody was there. Aiden O'Brien, Ryan Moore, they were all on my floor. Michael Stout, I told him I outranked him because he's a knight and I was a pick 6 king, so I outranked him. And he was a very good sport about it. But it was, I don't know the name of the hotel, but it was expensive, but it was definitely the place to stay. So, Ed, you guys are more local to there. Where are the places to stay and where are the places to eat?
Well, I mean, budget's always the big thing, right? So if you're able to stay downtown, I'm going to guess you were at the Galt House.
No, Galt House, no, nicer than that.
Seelbach?
No.
Hotel Genevieve?
All the horsemen stay there. What was it?
That's why I guess Galt House, because I know they use Hotel Genevieve was the Omni?
Might have been the Omni.
That's nice. Yeah, I mean downtown and any of your high the price will kind of tell you what's
It was
nice.
expensive. It was
Yeah.
probably the most expensive hotel down there,
Now
but it was
food,
worth it. It was a lot of fun.
now on a bud, like I always think by the airport because you're so close to the track,
Right.
and you have your usual Marriotts and Hiltons, clean, reliable places. Now food wise, I feel a little more confident. Jeff Ruby's is a classic. A lot of people have mentioned Repeal Steakhouse. I found that to be extremely overrated. I was bitterly disappointed. Proof on Main is for a very specific appetite. Check the menu before you go with the group because it's not for everybody for sure, but they do a nice job. Muscle and Burger Bar, great burgers. So that's, chill bar spot. But, and of course, Skyline Chili. If you have a bad day at the track, at least that's a cheap meal that's reliable.
What about you, Dan? Where do you like to eat down there?
I'm more of a Kern's Corner guy.
There you
Sports
go.
bar type.
Yeah, that's a great tout. Best
You know,
patty
so-
in town.
But hey, Ruby's, you can never go wrong. But I like to stay when you come in the backside of the track there. I think it's the name of the street's Poplar. There's some hotels down in that area that are 5 to 10 minutes from the track that a lot of people forget about because it's kind of the back way in. And that's kind of the way I like to come because you can get in and out even on Derby Day pretty quick. And for parking, I recommend always go to eBay and all those ticket places and look for the people selling spots in their front yard. I parked in the first house right there with a golf cart to take me right to the gate. It was like $50, but I'm telling you, they had burgers grilling. It was the greatest thing in the world.
That's a good steer. That's definitely a good steer.
Yeah,
you go past the backside there, gate 10, all those little neighborhoods back there, man. You can't beat it. They got golf carts take you right to your gate.
I agree. The media has parking at the fairgrounds, which, depending on how the shuttle's running is anywhere from fine to inefficient. And I've done the neighborhood thing as well when I knew I just didn't want to deal with that. So to quote you, Jonathan, good steer.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right.
Good recommendation.
I guess anybody who's stuck with us this long wants to hear about horses now, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, good thing with YouTube, you timestamp when we actually talk about this. So if they need to flash forward,
absolutely,
they're going to land.
Well, we're 15 minutes in and we're getting to the horses. So apologize. We like talking racing and everything that surrounds it. So bear with us. I guess we'll just run down the list and give our thoughts on everybody on the list in the order that they're there. Obviously, we don't know post positions yet, but we know who's probably going to be in the field with a couple of exceptions. Let's start with first horse on the list, who's Burnham Square. Dan, you can hit lead off.
All right. I think he's one that's got a chance. He's one of the secondary ones, but if the pace melts down like I think it's going to, he's one that's going to come running. His numbers are improving. A lot of the Rags guys are going to like him because, as they like to say, he paired 8.5 his last 2 starts. So, naturally he should come forward. I don't like the 3 starts, the 3 preps, and almost, we cut that off at January 1st, but he's 3 days from having 4 preps. He ran on December 28th. So I don't like that part, but I think he's in that bigger group that can win. I think there's 4 that can really win and about 9 that have a chance, and he's in that 9. Wouldn't be my top pick, but if you make a bigger pick 4 or pick 5 ticket, I could see putting him on your ticket. He's got a chance.
Ed?
Yeah, it sounds like I'm pretty similar with Dan. I mean, especially with pace and Brian Hernandez up, gives you a little confidence that, might be able to work out a ground saving trip, even coming from the back. So that's a positive. I looked at both Thoroughgraph and Ragozin, and, numbers wise, he is competitive. I actually would say he looks better on Thoroughgraph just because he did move forward in the Bluegrass. I'm a little concerned, and I prefer Ragozin. Just that's what I use more often. But I'm a little concerned that he's only paired. He just hasn't gotten better since that first start this year. Was in Thoroughgraph. That was a step forward. And I guess we'll get to it more when we get to East Avenue. But if you think we saw, the resurrection of East Avenue in the Bluegrass, then you got to like Burnham Square because he beat a good horse. But if you're like, look at what we saw from East Avenue in the last two, what did he really run down? Then maybe it's a downgrade. I couldn't get excited about this horse unless you were, probably 15. I wouldn't completely toss him out. 20, I'd be a little excited. But if he's third or fourth choice, I'm probably just going to have to let him beat me.
I'm against him as well. I'm just I can't put my finger on it precisely, but I'm just having a hard time getting excited or enthusiastic about him. I mean, he looks okay on Thoroughgraph. He looked very good. I prefer Thoroughgraph to the Rags, but again, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. But I'm just like, in my mind, when I look at him and the other horses in the race, he just looks the horse like, even if he fires, somebody's going to be better than him. You know what I mean? Just maybe I don't know.
That's a great point.
But somebody's going to be better than him and outfinish him. So I just can't get to him. And sometimes, it happens to me with good horses. I get a bias and I just can't overcome it, even though I try never to do that. It happened to me with California Chrome, and look what he did. I finally got revenge in the Belmont Stakes, but he kicked my ass a few times before that. I can't put my finger on it. I'm just not sold. I'll put it that way. Just not sold. I think someone will be better than him. Sandman. Ed.
I would say what you said about Burnham Square is probably where I'm at with Sandman. And I prefer Burnham Square. And knowing that Sandman is definitely going to be a lower price than Burnham Square, just going to have to be a toss. And I love talking to Mark Cassie. Loves being in the mix in these races. He runs his horses. From that standpoint, I like the idea of him winning because I think we'll see him a bunch. Same with Kenny McPeak. He likes running his horses. But, man, that Arkansas Derby, what a setup. And, yeah, we're expecting a fast pace in the Derby too, but it's just a completely different animal, chasing a fast pace versus zigzagging home after a suicidal duel. You have to win that race if you're Sandman, and he did. So great for him, grade 1 winner. But from a Derby perspective, I just didn't see enough in the previous 2 races to make me think that everything doesn't have to go his way in the Derby to win. What ultimately looks like he's going to be second or third choice. Some Vegas books have him as a favorite, which is crazy to me over journalism. So to me, he's, I hate to say it because we all know he can win, but at the price, he's a toss.
I could pretty much, say just a couple of things. Great minds think alike, ditto. To me, when they put up the 45-1, I said, I watched that race. I wish I could bet now because I'd bet everything I own on Sandman. He almost had a win when you got that half and the way they got that half. And I almost always bet against and downgrade significantly horses coming off perfect trip, perfect setups. And that was all Sandman last time. So
yeah.
I don't think I have anything to add to what you already pointed out. Dan?
I agree with both of you. I didn't get to watch a lot of the race because I was too busy throwing shit because I wanted to strangle Johnny Velasquez because I had a lot of money bet on Cornucopia back in January at 66-1. And I knew all he had to do was take back and it would have been a normal race and he probably would have won. But for some reason, he just wanted to go with the Banjo Man and set it up. So, Sandman had to win that race. And I am actually shocked at how low these numbers are for that race. Everything was perfect for him to run a 108 buyer number, a 108 Briz, a 5.5 rag. And he didn't. 99 with that perfect setup, a 9.75 rag. That's just not. You got to run about a 5 rag to win this race, and he's nowhere close. So, yeah, he's going to get the setup. I don't like horses in the Derby that weave and duck, and he's too immature to me. I think all that dirt's going to hit him, and that crowd's going to be around him, and I think he may run way up the track. I wouldn't even put him in my tries.
Interesting. All right, now we go to who the real favorite is going to be, journalism, and I'll lead off with him. I guess we'll keep it in that order. I was talking to, with Dan before we went on the show, and I said, you don't get anything extra except maybe bragging rights or whatever. But I said before the horse broke his maiden on the very first Kentucky Derby radar show that we did, watch journalism, Derby horse written all over him, and now everybody likes him. It's nothing creative to come up with the horse that's going to be the favorite for the Derby, but I've got no knock on him. None. I can't find any nick on him whatsoever. Obviously, we don't know post, we don't know pace, we don't know any of that, but it looks like there's going to be a legit pace. There usually is in the Derby. I think his two races this year, both, I mean, the Los Al race was great. That long stretch, I think, helped him a lot, closing out the 2-year-old year. Comes back into San Felipe under no pressure to win, just wanted to get a race into him, exploded. I think what happened to him last time, being pinned on the rail and having to get, shuffled around and some dirt in his face and couldn't get out when Umberto wanted to get him out. I think that's going to benefit him come first Saturday in May. He's a curlin. He's full of run. He reminds me when I look at him race and run of a past Derby winner named Barbaro, who looked as pretty as I can remember coming down the lane as any horse. And he doesn't remind me of a Ferrari. He kind of reminds me of a Rolls Royce. And if you've never driven one, I can tell you this: Rolls Royces are big, heavy, beautiful, luxury cars, like a living room. But when you press down on the gas of a Phantom, thing weighs a ton and takes off like a jet, And this horse to me is like a Rolls Royce. He's just a beautiful, beautiful animal. I got no knock. I think he's the legitimate favorite, and I think he's going to be tough to beat, barring a clunker. And a lot of time we've seen, the Derby best horse just come out and just not fire, But I don't see him like a Sierra Leone type of horse where he gets in the mix and just doesn't get it done. I think, barring something fluky like a really bad trip or just a non-fire, he's the most likely winner.
Yeah, I agree with that. If I'm Mike McCarthy, I'm hoping to draw the 16 through 20, stay out of trouble. He's the best horse. His stride's incredible. He reminds me of I'll Have Another or Barbaros, same thing, that unbelievable stride, to where he's got the tactical speed. The numbers are just so much higher than everybody else's on the Briz and Beyer. If he runs a 108 or 110, he's going to win. Now, I don't understand this last race rag number. I wouldn't have given him a 9.25. I thought the race was just as good or better than his last two races. I think he's getting better. He got dead stopped. The rider had no choice. He was stuck. The rider on Barnes was race riding him, not letting him out. Baeza got the jump on him, and he still went easy. So, barring a horrible post position or a Holy Bull type break to where he just breaks way back, he should sit in that 6th, 7th area and be ready to rock and roll when they start to turn. And he's going to be really tough to beat. That's not telling anybody anything, but he's going to be really, really tough to beat. And I'll be happy because I'm buddies with a lot of the Eclipse people, and I know they're excited. And I know Coach Davenport's real close with Mike McCarthy. So, we got connections. So I'm rooting for him. But, of course, we're going to try to beat him on a couple tickets. But I'm with you guys. He's going to be tough, man.
Umberto Rispoli is a friend of mine. We had him on the show yesterday. We did an interview, and I'm rooting for him big time. But I will say this, and Ed will probably validate it. I think, you mentioned the number on the rags, and he regressed. He got a good number on Thorograph. I don't remember what it is. I think it was a 1. But before that, in the San Felipe, he run a 0.5 negative number, which was really fast. And if he runs back to that, the race is probably for second. But the thing of it is, the reason for the number, I think, and for the regression on Thorograph and for the number on Rags is, they put so much emphasis on ground loss and ground trip. And that time that he was pinned on the rail, they're just watching him on the rail and not losing any ground and downgrading his number because he's not wide. Had Umberto got out and took him in the 4-path and he win the race that way, he might have gotten a better number. So sometimes you got to read a little bit between the lines. Ed, I mean, you've been using the sheets a long time, so I think you would agree with that assessment and that explanation as to why the number might not be what you might think it would be.
Absolutely. And, I definitely was a little discouraged by the 9 1/4. I mean, that was a step back off a lifetime top. So, that is sort of, oh man, he had a career best and went backwards. So if I were against him, that's what I'd be pinning my hopes on, that he actually is moving backward. But the encouraging thing, and we all like him, so I guess we'll see where the price ends up. But for better or worse, this horse is not going to be 2-1. And to me, his resume is worthy of being 2-1, and he's not. And, part of it, maybe it's because he's trained by Michael McCarthy, who I consider a world-class horseman, but it's not the same as if your last name's Baffert, Pletcher, or Cox. So maybe you're getting a little bump there. Umberto Rispoli, world-class jockey, no issues with him whatsoever being in the spot. But he's not a Rod Ortiz or Flavian Pratt. So maybe you're getting half a point because of that. And all said and done, yeah, the sheet could be better, but he does have the fastest number and the eye test. And, I don't know a lot what I'm looking at in the middle, but the extremes I feel pretty good about knowing when I see a good horse. And he passes that test for me, both in the San Felipe with that winning move and getting out of trouble in the Santa Anita Derby. So I am going to be price sensitive. If I do think he's going to be 2-1, it won't be a all-in situation. But at 3-1 or 7-2, I think you could start thinking, yeah, this is the one to pin my hopes on.
I'm glad you said 2-1 because I value you as a good odds and stat guy. And when I kind of looked at this race objectively, I thought, to me, the way I handicap and look at the race, I think he's about a 9-5 type of horse. Now I know he's probably not going to be that, and you're probably right. He's going to be a 3-1, 7-2 favorite, which is good. But the way I handicap, I say, he's like a 9-5 horse in this field. To me, to my way of looking. Yeah. So that's very close to 2-1. Just to sliver away.
And if you think he should be that, and he's 3-1, that's go time.
Yeah,
that's value.
And I agree with everything you said about Michael and Umberto. Rodriguez, I think you're back up, Dan.
Rodriguez. Well, if Bob Baffert wasn't the trainer, I would tell you to toss him immediately. But after losing a ton of money to Medina Spirit and losing a ton of money to Authentic when I thought I couldn't lose Turning for Home, I'm just really leery about leaving out Bob Baffert on the year he's returning to the Derby on a horse that's going to be forward, that's going forward. His numbers are going forward. I mean, he got back to his top last time, an 8 rag, a 105 Briz, a 101 Fire. I mean, all those numbers are competitive on a normal Derby year. Now, normal Derby years don't have journalism in the race, but I'm scared. I just keep telling myself, don't leave him off every ticket. Put him in something, because if he doesn't stop when they turn for home, I'm going to be throwing stuff again. So that's all I got to say. I mean, the horse alone, I would not take, especially with the other speed in there.
Well, he comes with the package. He comes with Bob.
Yeah, but because it's Baffert, it's like I got to put him on at least something. a pick 4 for 50 cents or something, because I got to have, as I like to say, my saver ticket. He has to be on that ticket. The main ticket, I just can't see him winning, but it's Bob.
Ed.
It sounds like I like him a little more than Dan. I don't know what the plan was in the starts 2 and 3 back, and there were good horses involved there, but we didn't see him even remotely attempt the trip he got in the Wood Memorial in either of those 2 races, and sort of get it. Barnes and Citizen Bull got that trip, and when Rodriguez did, he won. So I see it as a positive. I'm curious what the tactics will be, on May 3rd, if it's, a gate to wire situation again. But I thought Captain Cook is a good horse. At Derby, I was concerned for him because of the 10 panels, but he was a 9 furlong winner, and he had no response for Rodriguez. He could not even get to his neck, let alone keep up behind him. And the Linda Rice horse was supposed to go, Sand Devil, and he was nowhere. So from a pace perspective, this horse has it, and others are going to run with him, so that's a fly in the ointment. But similar to Dan, I'm not going to let him beat me on anything where I go past journalism, assuming he's the right price. And I see him as a win contender. Of the 4 we've talked about so far, I like him second best.
And interesting. And a couple of things I'll add. I agree with both everything that you both said. I will point out that he is 1 for 1 with blinkers off. I'll also say that, Ed, you said other speed is going to run with him. How many races do we see, the Wood Memorial being an example, where you think horses are going to run and one horse winds up getting out there and, he's 2 in front and everybody's thinking he's going to come back and they don't. I mean,
that's a good point.
It just happens a lot.
When we saw it with his sire, Authentic,
exactly.
Which was a September Derby, but
exactly, and it brings me to what I'm going to say about him, and it agrees with both of you guys. When Authentic was on the lead that day, I knew I was in trouble because it was Bob clear in the Derby, and I'm like, I'm not. And I was alive for a lot of money. I think that was the year I was alive for $1 million with Patrick Biancone's home in the pick 5 and pick 6, and $500,000 with the horse Mike Smith rode, Honor AP. I think it was that year. And I knew I was dead. I said, they ain't going to catch this horse. I made a big blunder here. And I decided that day, I am never letting that happen to me again. I am never having Bob in front by 2 in the Kentucky Derby, and he ain't on my ticket, because it's a horrible feeling.
Yes,
it ain't a good feeling. It's if I lose, I'd rather lose late than early. I don't want to be tearing up at the half-mile pole knowing.
Yeah, you want the thrill.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think you got to respect him, man. Like you said, first year back, make a hell of a story. I thought it was going to be Cornucopia and that got him back and on the lead, but it's not. It's Rodriguez, who is highly regarded early, had those couple of races that Ed pointed it out where we're not exactly sure what went wrong, but I like the fact that he's 1 for 1 without the blinkers, coming in confident, and could wind up I hate that term, but the speed of the speed, or just the horse that goes, and everybody says, well, let's sit back here, which you would think some of these riders would know by now. Hey, if you're sitting 2 lengths off Bob and letting him go, you're not going to go get him. But we see it all the time. So, like you said, tough to beat journalism, but if you're going to start shopping, he's got to be one of the ones that you consider very strongly. So I think we're all in agreement.
Sounds that way.
Tistastic. Take it away.
This is one I don't get the money that showed up. I've seen 15 to 20 to 1, and to me, he's just not in that grouping of even your Burnham Squares who might be around there. The Louisiana Derby came from the clouds. Brisnet has that as a super fast pace, maybe not quite Arkansas Derby level. I guess you could say, well, we know he'll like the distance, having won at a Mound 3/16. But I just think this has the feel of an overbet horse off winning the final prep. People like to see the ones, especially recently. It's not certainly going to be a complete shock if he's picking up the pieces late. We've had more unlikely winners, so I'm not trying to say he can't win, but certainly the money he's taken, whether the Vegas books or that final Kentucky Derby pool, I just can't see myself being remotely interested in taking that kind of price given his numbers. And again, we're saying there is going to be pace. So, you'd say, well, it's an ideal setup for him. But looking at what journalism has done with a middle move and then still having fast late pace numbers, that buries horses like Tistastic. He's just not going to get a jump on that horse, and he's not going to catch him late. And it's just not worth a gamble at 15 or 20 to 1. So I'm out.
I tend to agree.
Yep, I'm out.
All right. Fantastic. Fast one. Okay. I agree with just about everything you said, Ed. I did like him in the Rebel when he didn't fire, and of course I didn't like him in Louisiana when he did. But
yeah, that was me with Rodriguez. I bet him in the Lewis and the San Felipe, thinking, okay, Bob's going to let him loose, and then got off him when Bob did let him loose.
All right, Tappan Street. I think I lead off with him. Hard to knock a lightly raced, improving Brad Cox horse. Just hard for me to knock him. I think he's going to be sitting in the right spot. I think he's improving. I don't think the lightly raced or inexperienced angle is as important as it used to be. A la Mage, Justify, and maybe some others too. But off the top of my head, they come to mind as lightly raced Derby winners. I think he's a serious horse and improving, and is definitely one that I will be considering. Again, do I like him as much as journalism? No. Do I think he's that good? No. But I do think he's good, and I do think he's getting better, and I have a hard time dismissing him.
I feel pretty much the same way you just said. He's getting better. Those are the good points. 6.75 rag is the second fastest in the race. Now I'm going to say something you guys will probably fall off your chair. I love Luis Saez, but I'm scared to death he's going to move this horse way too soon in the Derby into a fast pace. He did it in the Holy Bull. He moved way too soon, and it cost him the race. Florida Derby, he moved at the perfect time. I'm not sure Sovereignty was even trying to win that race, but he got the jump on him, and he held him. The only way he can win the Derby is he's got to have the perfect timing, because he's got to wait as long as he can possibly wait with that fast pace. But he's got to get clear of those closers, and he's got to get ahead of journalism, because he's not going to outclose journalism. So the only way he can win is to get in front of him, which means Louis is going to move too soon. He loves to move too soon. But most of the time, especially in claiming races, he'll get to the front early and they just never catch him. Well, I think he's going to move this horse too soon. It wouldn't shock me if he doesn't take the lead at the head of the lane and then collapse, is what I'm thinking is going to happen. But maybe I'll be wrong. But I think there's some closers and journalism going to be breathing down his neck when they turn for home. And I think he'll stop at the 8th pole.
Ed?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned, I guess, about Into Mischief, Mount a Quarter. And I know people are mentioning Tappet as well, but not because of the Mount of Quarters, because he has such a poor Derby record. But Into Mischief, I think, sort of does make sense for me at the 10 furlongs. And the next horse we talk about will check that box as well. I think Dan's onto something with maybe the trip, whether it's jockey error or not. I'm not sure the first move is what's going to win the Derby, especially if Rodriguez is able to rebuff whoever makes that first move and break their heart. So I'm not totally dismissive. I'm curious where the price will end up, but it just feels like a horse who might get lost in the shuffle of the dynamics of the race. And, off that win, probably figures to take some money too. But I don't have any doubt this is a good horse, and would expect if healthy and sound, we'll be hearing from beyond the Derby. But I'm leaning toward just sort of a lukewarm. Wouldn't want him to beat me if I'm right about everything else, but isn't going to be a key play.
Okay. Mott's horse. Take it away, Ed.
Me? It's Dan, I think, this time.
Oh, is it Dan?
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, Sovereignty. I don't think they tried to win the last race. I think that was a complete just take him back, let him run home, don't abuse him, get him ready for the Derby. And if journalism wasn't in this race, I think that I would be betting with both hands on Sovereignty with the pace, the way it's going to be. And I know he reminds me of Animal Kingdom so bad, the way he's just going to sit back and come wide, and he's gigantic. His head's gigantic. He's going to come flying on the outside. I don't think the distance will be any issue for him at all. I'm assuming Alvarado is going to be healthy and ready to go. We still got several weeks. I'm sure he'll be completely ready by then. It's just about trip with him. He's going to have to come from way back. I would be mad if he was in the middle of the pack. I want him street sense back, real orb back, mind that bird back. I mean, I want him way in the back, because when it collapses, the only chance he's got to beat in journalism is he's got to swoop him on the outside and just run his butt down, because his stride just keeps lengthening and lengthening. But I think he's going to be on my short tickets. I'm hoping I can get 6-1 or so on him. I mean, I think there's enough other options, especially if Baeza draws in. I wouldn't want 3-1 or 4-1, but I think 6-1 will happen. He paired 6.75 rags, so everything is screaming that he's going to run somewhere in that 3, 4, 5 area, which can win this race. So I have to have Sovereignty on my short tickets.
Ed?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement. I guess my one concern would be, I'm not looking to double the cost of everything by using the second choice if I'm on journalism. So I'm going to let the board decide, maybe which one is the lean based on if there's an overlay there. But I think he'll be higher than 4-1. Dan said, between Baeza and Rodriguez and just other options. It just doesn't feel like we're going to have two horses that would pay less than $10. This is one of the few, and Tappan Street being another one. So the Florida Derby, I guess, Thoroughgraph and Ragozin pretty much agree. Both horses move forward in their race before the Florida Derby, and then they have Sovereignty pairing and Tappan Street moving forward again. But from that standpoint, I like Sovereignty a little more than, say, Burnham Square, because the 3-year-old numbers are quicker than what he ran as a 2-year-old, whereas Burnham Square doesn't quite have that development. And if Mott gets this horse to move forward again, he's one of the ones, absolutely. So I'm going to, just pay attention to the board and, not want to put myself in a position where I'm overextending on the chalk and second choice. But journalism and Sovereignty have earned those mantles, and it's just going to come down to which one I think is the better price in terms of a lean. But if you were to tell me for your life a show bet, I'd probably actually lean Sovereignty over journalism.
We're in agreement. And with Sovereignty, there's something that you guys didn't mention that I kind of value highly and jumps off the page at me that we didn't mention. We're talking
Can
a lot.
I take a guess?
And moving forward, yeah, absolutely.
Want to race at Churchill?
Yeah, that race at Churchill just kind of jumps out at me,
Yeah, as a maiden.
Yeah,
so
right.
Mott was a believer.
Exactly. 5-length win as a maiden in the street sense, grade 3. race over the track, first time around 2 turns, went off the favorite that day, and you know, I mean, not to be a cliche thrower, but we know he likes the racetrack.
Yeah.
I mean, and that sometimes those kind of, I don't know that intangible is the right word, but those kind of things that get a little bit overlooked with numbers and deep analytics mean just as much.
Yep.
So that kind of jumps out at me. So I'll add that to Sovereignty's resume as another reason why he's absolutely a serious player. I will say the Fountain of Youth, I thought, was a little bit of an overrated race because they had that huge run up that day. And I was originally impressed because I'm like, short stretch race at Gulfstream Park, coming off the pace to win. You got to be a serious racehorse to be able to do that. But then I looked at the run up and it was about a half a mile. So I'm like, you know what? It's not really a short stretch race and it's not really as good as I thought it was. But he's legit, and I don't mean that as a knock. So we can go forward off there. Final Gambit. Who's up?
I'm up.
Go ahead, Ed.
I mean, maybe this one wakes up on dirt, and it's funny to say that off a win, but the numbers just aren't there. And given the question mark regarding dirt, and it's not like Brad Cox doesn't have access to any condition book he wants. There's a reason this horse debuted on turf, wintered at Turfway, and I'm just going to have to kind of trust that reason because I've heard some buzz on this horse, and not from randoms. I mean, we all have certain handicappers we respect more than others, and a few are on this horse. Not saying they're necessarily a top pick to win, but enough that it's like, okay, he might actually take a little money here. And I just have to let a horse with these numbers for this trainer that has never been on dirt. I'll let him beat me. And yeah, he's going to be 25 or 30 to 1, but can't use them all. And nothing against the Ruby. We all know I've picked a horse out of there in the past, much to my chagrin after the fact. But this one it'd have to be a lifetime best by far on a surface he's never done before for a trainer that has no problem running him on dirt and shipping horses around to get him in the right spot. So I'm a fade.
Dan?
I want to see how he does on dirt because he might be the next great marathon horse. This horse don't even start running until the last furlong. I mean, I've watched him run all 4 times and he don't get tired at all. I mean, this race might actually be too short for him. So I don't know how he's going to run on dirt. If he's 30 to 1, he's kind of the flyer horse that if you want to, if you're taking 4 or 5 of them in a pick 4 or 5 and you got your buddies in on your ticket, you might want to just toss him on the ticket for 50 cents. Just to say, if this pace is as fast as we think it's going to be, or at least I think it's going to be, something goofy could happen, like Rich Strike, like Mine That Bird. So he would be that horse for me. He's that horse. He's the one that it's Brad Cox, it's Juddmonte. I have no idea how he's going to do on dirt, but I know one thing: he's not going to stop running. He's just not. He's. If they were going 1.5 miles at Belmont, I'd have him right on my radar for the Belmont and for the Breeders' Cup Marathon because he don't stop. He's just a train. So. Is it worth a flyer if he's 30 to 1? Yeah. If he's 12 to 1 or 15 to 1, no thanks.
I'm glad you said some of the things that you said because I agree with you. I think if there's a bomb or a Rich Strike or a fluke in this race, he's the one. And I'll tell you something that also jumps out at me, and it's something I've been following for about 6 or 7 months now. And you know how sometimes you just get on something and it just keeps paying and paying and paying? The horses coming off the synthetic track at Turfway Park have been outrunning their odds and overperforming all over the place. I don't care where they wind up, I don't care what they look like going in. They come off that track and they hit dirt tracks or turf courses all across the country and they explode. They just run. So that track legs them up this year like as good as anything I've seen. I've caught horses since I've been doing this that I would never have used or looked at handicapping a race. Just you know what? I've seen so many horses coming off this Turfway Park win. I'm going to throw them in. Bang, 17-1. Bang, 11-1. Bang, 22-1. And so in the Derby, where we know these fluky things happen, like you said, Dan, we get a pace collapse. This horse doesn't get tired. We saw it with Rich Strike. Judmont, Brad Cox, 25-1. Everybody kicking themselves after. How do you not use them? You know, scary, dangerous, sneaky horse to me that I'll say at worst, you got to say he's a question mark because we don't know what he is on the dirt. I mean, I look at his dirt works. I haven't watched him yet, but I look at them and they certainly look like he's stepping pretty lively. And you know, he trains with good horses because there ain't no other horses in that barn but good horses. Cold Battle. I'm up. Great story. I can't get to him. You know, like I said with Burnham Square, you know, even if he brings it and even if he fires, there's just half a dozen horses in here at least that I got to say one of them got to be better than him the last 8th and 16th of a mile. So do I respect him? Do I love the story? Yes, yes, yes. Do I think he's got a shot to win the race? Not for my money, no.
Yeah, to me, he's got a big chance to win the Ohio Derby.
Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect. I don't like him at all. You know, that Arkansas Derby was a step back on both numbers. Didn't look good either. Like I wasn't surprised to see it was a step back. And similar to Sandman, I mean, he's not a dead closer, but you know, if he were a true Kentucky Derby horse, that's a race. Okay, say you don't even win, you should finish ahead of the maiden if you're Cold Battle with the reputation he had going into that race, and he didn't. It was a step backward. I'm not using him at all anywhere.
All right, moving right along. Dan,
Chunk of gold. Chunk of gold. You know, I would love to see him win for the local connections. I think he's wanted kind of like Final Gambit. I think he's kind of a flyer horse that if you're betting these huge tickets, which so many guys do on Derby Day, he'd be one I'd throw in for 50 cents. He'd be one I'd put in the superfecta and the trifecta. You know, there's a few reasons. One, he paired up his numbers 12 and 12. He's getting better every start. He ran a really good race last time. He's got a lot of time off. And he's been better on dirt. So when you look at, his 2 Tapeta races were pretty good. But once he got on dirt, his numbers just took off. So I think he really does want dirt. And, you know, it'd be a great story for sure. But I would definitely have him in my supers, my tries, stuff like that. And I would not be scared if I was betting a big ticket to throw him on as a flyer horse, you know, just to try to strike the moon.
Ed?
Everything you guys said about Final Gambit is, you know, maybe the Rich Strike horse of this year. I would say that's Chunk of Gold for me. It doesn't have the numbers where you say, oh, he's a strong win contender, even a mild one. But as Dan pointed out, he is going in the right direction. He's done nothing wrong. So to me, improvement for Chunk of Gold is far more likely than Cold Battle. And I would, you know, if there were heads to head and it was bet like Cold Battle is the favorite among the two because he's going to be a lower price, I'd be looking at Chunk of Gold for the max. I expect him to run a much better race than a horse like Cold Battle, who's probably going to be like the 8th or 9th choice. So, from a wagering perspective, to me, not only a must use on the deeper tickets, but, you know, you're looking to shave vertically. I could see him being a key underneath because with the running style Jareth isn't going to get a lot of attention, even though he has a runner-up finish. Ethan, obviously, lesser known name for those not around Kentucky. These are capable horsemen, though, and with the right trip can absolutely crash the party underneath. So to me, he's a key to maybe blowing up that trifecta.
I kind of agree with that. He's a horse that I could see getting a piece. He's lightly raised, getting better, and back to what I said about Final Gambit. I think if you look, he came off Turfway Park at 40-1, and run a bang up second when nobody expected it. So that's kind of that angle that I was talking about, and he's just gotten better since then. So that's the kind of big jump forward. I wouldn't be shocked to see Final Gambit throw. This guy's already done it, and he's training back at Turfway. Theoretically, he's coming off Turfway again. So how could I dismiss him? A little tough for me to get to on the win end, but definitely if I'm betting, supers and triples and things of that nature, he's definitely on those tickets in the second, third, and fourth slots for sure. Citizen Bull.
I just don't know what the path is here. This horse has not moved forward as a 3-year-old, which is, definitely not ideal for classic type races. If he's on the front end, we, have to expect there's going to be company, maybe from his uncoupled stablemates, whether that's Rodriguez or Madaket Road. It kind of felt like last time was the time. I mean, Barnes was behind him, kept journalism pinned in, and Citizen Bull couldn't even muster finishing ahead of Westwood. It's just really hard to see how this horse is competitive on May 3rd. And hopefully, because of, Bob and being champion and Breeders' Cup winner, he actually takes a little bit of money. But I don't give him much of a chance and don't see him hanging around for second or third either. So it's a toss for me.
Dan?
Yeah, I feel the same way. And part of the reason why I like entries and can't stand it when the same trainer has 3 different horses in the race that are all speed. Because, as a bettor, I don't know what's happening when he stands there with those 3 riders. What if he says, all right, Martine, you got to take back like he did in the San Anita Derby, and then with Barnes, you got to really take back and don't even try to win. You got 3 horses in the Barefoot barn. They're all speed. They all want the lead. So how do we know which one he's telling to go to the lead? Does he just tell all the riders, just ride your race? They're not all going to go out there and kill each other. This horse has one chance. He's got to make the lead. But so does Rodriguez. And so does East Avenue. I see no path to where he can win. Unless somehow everybody else takes back and he makes the lead, which God knows we've seen that enough with Baffert. But if I'm going to take a Baffert, it's going to be Rodriguez. It's not going to be Citizen Bull.
It's interesting because we're all talking about Rodriguez, and we're kind of leaving the door open for the other Bob to beat us the same way we're saying that Rodriguez, we don't want to let him beat us that way.
I know. It's like, how many can you take?
I understand, but if you take one, are you taking the right one? You just leave the door open. Somebody's going to come in, So it's I agree, and I'm also leaning towards leaving that door open because, contrary to what we said, I don't believe Rodriguez's only path to victory is on the lead.
I agree.
Surprised if he sits second or third in a catbird seat and can still win. So, assuming Mike Smith rides him, Mike is not probably going to burn him out if he goes out like that, and that happens. He probably will take back and sit in the catbird seat and try it. And maybe those races where he tried that in the past might help him getting back.
So the owners of Palace Malice wouldn't like that statement.
No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. But he did set him up for the Belmont with that.
Yes, he did.
But yeah, I just can't get to Citizen Bull. I don't think I've ever liked him in any of his races. He's never been who I came up with. So, I'm going to leave that door open with you guys, and we all may be crying in our milk on Saturday night if Bob wins with the other horse, which we've seen happen more times than we can count. East Avenue. Okay, I think that I am up. Uh, I bet this horse when he won the Breeders' Futurity, and I'll go back to something we spoke about. I bet him that day because I thought he was the only speed. I thought that coming out of that sprint, he would take the lead at Keeneland, which we know can be very, very speed friendly. And he won at 5-2. I was 100% against him in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Did not use him on any tickets. All right, he come out of the gate bad, but I don't think he was going to win anyway. And he didn't win. The reason is, like we discussed with the other horse, I want to say Sandman, horses coming off those perfect kind of trips and setups, I tend to go against next time out. Now, what happened with this horse, off that perfect trip setup, stretching out only speed, all of a sudden everybody thought he's the second coming and is expecting all these great things out of him. Well, guess what? He flopped again in the Risen Star. And then next time out, he goes back to Keeneland, the track we know he likes. He gunned to a very fast pace early, couldn't hold off Burnham Square with the blinkers on, did go fast early, but I'm just not sold that he's all that. And I think that Breeders' Futurity has kind of misled people thinking that this horse has more than he maybe really does. I think with the pace, the way it looks, he's going to get cooked.
I agree. I think he's most likely, if you could bet the half mile, he'd probably be in front, but he's going to stop before they even start to turn. And they're all going to gobble him up. He's one of the 3 or 4 most likely to run last to me.
Wow.
Because he's going to get burned up early, and they're going to just tank him and jog him home.
Ed?
Yeah, I wish run style wise there was something to lean on, because from sort of a numbers theory, pairing the 2-year-old is usually a strong indication that they can break through that and move forward again. But in the Derby, he's either going to have to quarter horse out of it to be certain to be the leader going into the first turn, or he's not on the lead. And based on what we saw in the BC and the Risen Star, I mean, those were disastrous efforts. So if he quarter horses it, that's using a lot to go a mile and a quarter against this group. It's just kind of tough to see where the decision tree leads you to a win. Last place, I'm not sure that's in play, but certainly on the win end, I just don't see it, and even second or third. So I more agree with Dan than not, and just going to have to let him beat me.
Okay. Publisher. Dan.
He's kind of a superfecta horse. If you're betting superfectas, you could throw him in super high fives, 4th, 5th type area. I don't think he's near good enough to be 1, 2, 3.
I think East Avenue and Publisher are the 2 horses that are still open as far as riders go right now. I'm not sure about that.
I think Irad's on Publisher, isn't he?
Is he?
Yeah,
okay.
That's right.
Who's got River Thames?
Good question.
I thought Irad was on River Thames. Maybe not. Maybe Johnny's back on him. I don't know.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Dan, what are your thoughts on Publisher? I mean, Ed, I apologize.
No, that's all right. Yeah, I don't see it. As poorly as I've talked about the Arkansas Derby already, certainly not going to go out of my way to be impressed by the runner-up finish in a race that fell apart. The mile and a quarter, I guess, is fine. I hear what Dan's saying. He can be third, get a looking at Lee type of trip. Wouldn't shock me to see him run around there. I mean, he runs his races, so I don't think we're going to get a dud necessarily, but a win would be a surprise. And even at the big price, I'm just going to have to say no thanks.
All right, no argument from me. The only thing I would throw out as an angle, and Ed, you may, knock me down because you are the stat guy, but I don't know if a maiden's ever won the Derby. I think maybe one. in the history. I'm not sure.
But it has happened, but it's been a while.
I always, take the contrarian approach that, well, it's going to happen eventually. So eventually another maiden's going to win. Eventually somebody's going to break that Apollo thing. So, that's about the most positive thing I could say about him, other than he's got a really good trainer. But
Oh,
not
shame
so.
on me. There's actually a really famous maiden winner of the Derby,
Okay, who is it?
Sir Barton.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Two
on me.
others.
Right.
So, but it's
Wow.
been since 1933.
All right, been a while. So it's due. It's due.
It's due.
Okay. American Promise. Ed?
Yeah, I mean, another situation of like, okay, what's the path here? Isn't necessarily as fast as any, although Brisnet gave the Virginia Derby a big number. I'm not sure if that's CDI home cooking or what. But even if you believe that was such a big move forward, even off 7 weeks. Hard to see how American Promise replicates it, given his run style. And I think I wasn't alone in shaking my head at what Keith was doing in the Risen Star, taken back from the rail, gave the horse no shot. So kudos to Nick Juarez for a great ride at Colonial. But that ride's going to have a lot of company in the Kentucky Derby, and I just don't see it working out. So, and I don't love the 7 weeks anyway. So, toss for me.
Dan?
I agree. Complete toss. Might be able to split the field. That's about it.
I think he's part of the pace, because I think even if he's not fast enough to get the lead, I think he's an early mover and an early, presser, which kind of assures that fast half and fast 3/4, which sets it up for somebody coming down the lane. So don't like him. Don't like the 7 weeks. Not sold on the Virginia Derby at that Colonial race. The track was like cement that day. So pass. River Thames.
That's you.
Interesting horse. I think he's getting better. I respect Todd. I think he can sit a nice trip. I'm probably not going to use him because, you can't dance with everybody that's in the club, But I respect him. I fear him. I'm high on McLean's music, even at a distance. As a sire, I always like those McLean's musics. I respect him. I don't have a real knock on him, except I just hope he's close enough and think he's going to be close enough where he gets a little weakened and a little vulnerable down the lane for the closes to get by him.
Yeah, I just don't think he's good enough. I don't think he's improving enough. I bet on him in the Bluegrass and was steaming mad that he never made. He had the perfect trip. He's got the best rider on the planet, sitting third with nobody near him, just able to relax into that fast pace. And when he asked you to go, he was looking at the stands. He was looking at the people. He was goofing around. I was like, this horse needs blinkers so bad. But they're not going to put him on him in the Derby either. So if he was looking around on Bluegrass Day, he's going to be looking all over the place on Derby Day. So I think he's another one that'll sit close. When they start to turn that bend at the 6 furlong pole, I think he's going to start fading out of it.
Ed?
Yeah, I thought he was in a spot that if he were a potential Derby winner or solid performer, East Avenue at the very least. I mean, maybe Burnham Square gets him from the back, but to just be third all the way around and actually not pass East Avenue, I see as a negative, given the likely price with, sort of the trainer that takes some money, and it's kind of a name we're already familiar with on the Derby trail. Wouldn't want, especially if he's like 8th, 9th choice, something like that. Wouldn't want him to beat me out of something if like Chunk of Gold and Sovereignty were the other two. But it's going to be a sparing use.
Okay. Flood Zone.
He's out.
He's out.
Not running? Okay.
No.
Luxor Cafe.
All right, I'll take this, and then I got to get.
Okay.
Japan, they did run well last year. He's an American Pharaoh. He's running against a bunch of nothing. I don't know. I just don't think he's got much of a chance. I think last year it was a weaker Derby. Fierceness didn't show up. Mystic Dan kind of just grinded his way there. Nobody was really running hard in the lane, and he was just kind of a methodical, he could have won maybe, but I think that this year's Derby's much better than last year. And I just don't see this horse figuring. I mean, if he beats me, he does. I'm not taking him on anything.
Ed?
Yeah, the negative I'll point out, in addition to what Dan said, I agree with, is I don't like the late ship. They were coming here. I don't get why you would not want to be here, go through quarantine, do all that, train at the track. I'm sure there will come a time when the traveling is just like taking your stable with you. Coolmore is getting there. Japan, I'm sure, is as well, but I don't think we're there yet. And I see it as a negative to his chances to arrive so late. It's just the Derby is different than every other race, and to face 19 others and be here that late off a around the world ship just isn't for me. So I'm out. And we know they take money. He's not going to take the money Forever Young did, but he'll take too much of it, and it won't be mine.
I agree with the money aspect. I think he's going to be overbet. And all right, we covered most of them. If there's anybody left that you guys want to just mention real quick, we can. Otherwise, I think we can wrap it up.
All right, I'm out. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
all right.
Dan.
Okay.
I'll point out the two runners up from the Wood and Santa Anita Derby. I think Grande, who is in, he had to chase Rodriguez around, who was a Gates of White winner, but he was absolutely best of the rest, as the chart.
He got I don't know if you looked at both sheets on Thorograph, he got a lower number than Rodriguez.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, half. Dang. Yeah, that was a nice move forward, and
and that's a strong angle. I always like when the second finisher gets a better number than the winner.
As Baeza did in the San Diego Derby. So Ragozin gave him a better number. Is Grande a better number as well? And to me, it's similar to River Thames. I mean, these are, they both debuted as 3-year-olds. They both move forward. Grande, to me, a little more pizzazz for Pletcher, and probably going to be, depending on what Rispoli bets to win, might be a bigger price or not. But I do like Grande better than River Thames. But I really do like Baeza. I mean, my feeling is the Santa Anita Derby was legit. I thought Baeza ran the type of race that could have been a winning race against almost any other horse in this crop, except Journalism. And it'd be a shame if he doesn't get in. So I'm hoping he does. I know a lot of people are always going to be overbet if he does. I don't think so. I think he'll be 10 or 12.
I think he's going to be the wise guy horse, but that is 10 or 12.
I'm a little nervous about that.
Well, that is 10 or 12.
Win, but it just was a good race. And, a lot of what we talk horses we've mentioned in trips, I don't think were as good as Baeza's. And I voted for John Sheriff for the Hall of Fame. If he doesn't get it this year, obviously another Derby win would cement it for sure. So
I think I voted for him as well. I think I did.
The fun horse to root for with the connections, but I thought the Santa Anita Derby was the best prep of the season by far. So how do I not take the horse who got the best figure out of it?
Yeah, a lot of people. It's funny. On one of the Derby radar shows I did, or one of the shows I did. In the comments afterwards, a lot of people pointed out, and I went back and watched it, and they were right, that he really galloped out in the Santa Anita Derby like a monster. He came back again past Journalism, kind of went towards the outside. All right, it was a gallop out, and Journalism was getting eased up. He did his job, but he really looked like he was first just, getting his lungs into him. I'm glad we talked a little extra, because I would say that Grande and Baeza are both contenders in my book, and both have the ability to come from off the pace, maybe not that far back, but
Right, not that far back.
sixth, eighth, 10th, or something like that, where
Yeah.
I think you're going to want to be this year.
I agree. That I guess for sovereignty, as Dan said, maybe you want him further back, and he's shown he's able to do that. But horses like Final Gambit, like that far back, that concerns me against this group, because I think those middle moves, and I call it the orb move because so many people associate him with having been a closer, and even Mind That Bird. They were both on the lead by the 8th pole and made their winning move on the turn. And I just don't see a Rich Strike trip being good enough this year. I think you absolutely are going to want to take control and come and get me, especially a horse like Journalism, who's probably the best. So, yeah, I want that. I want that mid-pack type for sure.
Yeah, one of the things I look at when I handicap is how horses finish and what their last late splits are. And when you have a horse that runs faster late splits than a lot of the other competition, and they get in front, turning for home, it's hard to get past them.
Right.
It's just you're not going to outfinish them. So if they're already in front, how do you win from there? So exciting time of the year. It'll be here before we know it.
That's for sure.
I hope we can watch it on the Roberts Network, the whole thing. Probably not, right? Got to play musical stations again.
Derby, they make you go to NBC.
Right. Well, I don't mind just staying on NBC. I get confused when you got to go here and you got to go there.
Right. Yeah. Peacock and
I wind up starting at 10:30 in the morning, and I'm on the Roberts Network because none of those other people are showing those early races. Then all of a sudden the screen blanks out, and I don't know where to go to watch the race. And there's 2 minutes to post. So
wow.
We'll see. But always a pleasure, Ed. And,
yeah, absolutely, Jonathan.
Okay.
Let's win some money. Oh, okay. Good cheer, Cinch?
No.
No? All right. I like it.
I'm not going to say that. There's a filly in there that I will share. I think is really going to step up. I was very disappointed when I looked at the Thoroughgraph numbers because I thought they'd be better. But I think Ballerina de Oro is a heck of a nice filly and is definitely capable of stepping up to the point where she can be competitive and even win the Oaks.
Yeah, I agree with you on the numbers. That was like, oh man, is she not as fast as I thought? Because I agree with you. I would say the benefit with her, which unfortunately, for chalk standpoint, benefits Good Cheer as well. There's a lot of pace in here, and Ballerina de Oro is definitely going to get every shot to be running late.
And if you look at her last 2 races, she really didn't have that. The race in Florida, a mile, was not really what she's all about. And last time, what I thought happened, and I didn't get a chance to ask Chad. I was going to ask him, but I didn't get a chance. When she made that move and got to the lead, I think in her mind, she kind of thought she did what she had to do, and that was it, and kind of shut down a little bit. And that other horse fought back, and she had to dig in to kind of get the win. But I think it was more of a mental thing than a lack of talent thing. I don't know if that was contributory to the number being, what it was. But I think it was educational for her, and I don't think we'll see that again in the Oaks. I think she's dangerous. I think Good Cheer may have a little tussle on her hand that a lot of people aren't expecting. All right, I'll stop this now, and then I'll just talk to you for a second, and we'll be done.
Sounds good.
There's a lot of ways to handicap a horse race and a lot of ways to bet on it. But nobody that I know does it like Gio Seti and his full card, precise order handicap. Every horse in the race gets a predicted order of finish like only Gio can do, way beyond a deep dive, available exclusively on select days at Past the Wire. This is important, so you're going to want to remember it. If you're a cat and you want to become a lion, you're going to have to lose your taste for rats.
Hey, Sure Bet Coffee. Put that giddy up in your cup. That giddy up in your cup. Sure Bet Coffee.
The legend himself, Frankie Dettori. Ciao, Frankie. Tutto a posto.
Tutto a posto. Yes, that's a good start. So you haven't lost your Italian.
You're watching Past the Wire TV, presented by Amwager.
Tracking trips at Past the Wire. There is no better time than now to join and ride with this clan. We'll be your second set of expert trained eyes. We ain't gonna buy you a fish. Sure, we'll give you some, but more importantly, we'll show you how to fish and make you a better. CAWs, sharks in the water, no problem. We'll go against anybody, and we have the track record to prove it. Big days, big pools, and select days all year long. We'll outplay them all. Looking for an ace? You're in the right place. Want to find that diamond? Be with us. Want to know more? Just ask a member or visit us at pastthewire.com and check out the tracking trips page. Nobody does it better. Remember, the older you get, the better you get. Unless you're a banana.
It's The Wire TV, your #1 source for horse racing news and interviews, handicapping analysis, betting insights, and more. Past the Wire TV covers the biggest races at the best tracks.
Garnet and Luis Saez to win the Belmonte Stakes at Saratoga.
The Grey Wizard is absolutely flying. Champagne won. The Grey Wizard. Oh, it's very close. Leave it to the judge.
Like, share, and subscribe to Past the Wire TV. Nobody does it better.
Blood. That makes you related. Loyalty. That makes you family. Nobody does it better.